So I am quite excited to share with you this piece of music for a couple of reasons. The first is, it is the only piece of music I have recorded in any of my studios which featured a real live acoustic instrument. Also, it is the only piece of music I have written which is specifically for a solo instrument, apart from some piano pieces. Most of the music I write and have written is more ensemble in nature and contains lots of different sounds, and it is not written specifically for a particular instrument. However, this was written for the flute. Mozart apparently was not very fond of the flute. Strange guy. I think it's a very expressive instrument and I absolutely love the sound of it. So this piece was composed using my usual favourite method of finding the sound I like and seeing what it suggests. In this case, I had a flute sound on the Yamaha SY77 and that led to this theme. So when I'd written it and recorded it, I played it to a friend and he said, "I know someone who plays the flute." And I thought, that would be good. So to cut a long story short, he put me in touch with Evelyn Orange and she kindly agreed to come along to my little studio and record the piece. Now, I had not recorded anything of an acoustic nature in my 1990s studio. In fact, I had to rummage around until I found an old Shure SM-something or other mic which a friend had given me back in the 80s. So there was no acoustic treatment or any consideration towards sound in this space at all. In fact, the room was one of the rooms which had a concrete pillar in it, and Evelyn was one side of the pillar with a big bay window on the other side. So I put the mic somewhere fairly close to the flute, I would imagine, and found somewhere to put the music. Now, as usual at that time, I was using Notator on the Atari ST, and I suspect I will have printed out the score from Notator. My handwriting and my notation are notoriously scribbly, and as Evelyn played the score perfectly, I can only imagine she had a clear score to work from. The second consideration was how to actually record it, since the wonderful advent of the computer-based MIDI sequencer where you can get in and edit individual notes. I know it's all hot now, but it was revolutionary at the time. I had never used a tape machine, and in fact I had got rid of my TX 4-track analog tape recorder in the 80s. But I did have a DAT recorder, digital audio tape machine. So the recording process involved playing the accompaniment from the Atari through the Yamaha SY77 into the mixer. The mic which was being used to record the flute also went into the mixer, and those two signals were recorded live, as it were, onto the DAT. And in order for Evelyn to hear what she was playing to, the accompaniment, I had to switch off the monitors which would have otherwise fed back into the microphone. So I had to switch those off and give her a set of headphones. So the flute part was played 100% live. Now, I think today that probably sounds a little anachronistic, but that was just the way recordings had to be made back in the 90s. Now, the computer-based DAW digital audio workstation, which can record and manipulate and play back digital audio, didn't arrive until the late 90s and early 21st century. In the early 90s, computer hardware was still not up to the task of handling digital audio. So that's what we did, and that's how we did it. Now, if you have watched some of the other videos on this channel, you will know I am not necessarily the best person to come up with names for tunes, and this was one of them. On my rediscovered tape, this was called Flute Tune. Now, when I rediscovered them, of course, Flute Tune, I knew exactly what it was, but I thought it needs a better name than that. So, of course, when I heard the music again, I immediately thought of Evelyn Orange, and I thought, why not call it Evelyn's Theme? That just seemed very appropriate and very fitting. Also, if you have seen some other videos, you will know that I never took any photographs, never mind videos, of any of my studios, or indeed of myself at the time. I had no idea what posterity might hand down to us, or was that pass on to us. So it just didn't enter my head to do anything like that. But I sort of wondered if Evelyn might have some photos, not of the recording session, because I'm pretty sure I would have remembered if she'd been running around with a camera. but of her playing the flute around that time. Now, I think Evelyn Orange is a wonderful name. The only other Orange I can bring to mind is William of Orange, and I know absolutely nothing about him. I think he was a king back in the 1600s, but it's obviously a memorable name and it stuck with me. So thanks to the wonders of social media, yes, Virginia, social media does have its uses. I found Evelyn Orange. And I got in touch and I explained what I was doing, and she said yes, she'd be happy for me to call it Evelyn's Theme. And I asked if she had any photos from the time, and she said yes, and she kindly sent some photographs along of her and her flute, which were taken in 1991, which is the year that this music was composed and recorded. So that ties up very nicely. Now, I don't think I was aware at the time, but Evelyn had worked professionally as a flautist. Not surprisingly. But I do sort of remember she mentioned something about writing back in the early 90s, and she went on to become a successful novelist, and she writes romantic suspense fiction. So in the description I will leave links to her website and to her Facebook author page and to her books on Amazon, and it would be really nice if you check them out and take a look. So that's the story of Evelyn's Theme. So I really do hope you enjoy the music, and if you've enjoyed this video and you like the music, then please consider subscribing to the channel, ringing the bell, thank you, and hitting the thumb. And as always, I really do appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. So thank you very much indeed. So here is Evelyn's Theme, played by Evelyn.